This episode is brought to you by Naked Fig Soap. Shop over a dozen handcrafted artisan soaps locally sourced and made in Arizona using the finest non-toxic intentional ingredients. Naked Fig Soap also offers facial care products along with accessories like soap dishes, soap saver bags, and more.
Visit their website at nakedfigsoap.com and use code DRUMMINGUP, all one word, for 20% off online orders. And that is the best place to find her now.
Yes.
She doesn't really have a storefront so much as she has
As of right now.
Yeah, as of right now,
Yes.
she has her products in certain locations,
Yes.
which again is the best place to find her is at her nakedfigsoap.com website.
Yes.
Or her socials. Instagram is a great spot to find her. Ask her any questions where she's going to be at like a farmer's market.
Yes.
You can find all that out. Or
But coming up, she's
Yeah.
moving to bigger and better opportunities.
Yes, absolutely. And we're very happy to hear that because,
Yes.
we just want to
She's
make
one
sure
of our
she's doing
favorite,
okay.
favorite companies.
Oh, yeah. Whenever we're getting low, we always place our order.
Yes.
And again, use that code drumming up,
Yes.
all one word, to get that 20% off discount.
For sure.
nakedfigsoap.com. It'll be in the show notes. We'll have her website. And then the best thing to do is from the website, go find her socials, follow her. That helps her. And by you doing that, it helps us because we know you're listening and we know you're buying her great products. She also offers tattoo care and everything too.
Yes,
so
she does.
just a ton of stuff that she does. It's all locally made and everything. So what was that website again?
That is nakedfigsoap.com.
Using code drumming
Drumming
up,
Up.
all one word, for 20% off at checkout.
Hi there, this is Julian of Gorad, and you are listening to Drumming Up Conversation. Hell yeah.
Drumming up conversation. Drumming up, yeah. Drumming up, yeah. Drumming up, yeah. Conversation. Drumming up, yeah. Drumming up, yeah. Drumming up, yeah. Conversation. Drumming up, yeah. Drumming up, yeah. Drumming up, yeah. Conversation. Drumming up, yeah. Drumming up, yeah. Drumming up, yeah. Conversation. Yeah.
All right, so today we are joined by my former lead singer, bassist. He has also worked with Corium and Until the Sun. Bruce Jensen, we call him BJ as well. How you doing today?
Not bad, man. How you doing?
Oh, hanging in there. It's a nice Saturday, so
Yeah, I haven't talked to you in a while.
yeah, it's been a little bit. So I guess we'll start off with what originally got you into music, specifically like hard rock and metal.
Oh man, I'm a little bit different than the rest of you guys, right? I mean, I first got into metal and rock back when I was like, let's say, about 10 years old, right? I heard the album, the Dr. Feelgood by Motley Crue,
Nice.
and I was like hooked immediately. I was a kid, so prior to that, it was just like, kid music.
Yeah.
Or like movie soundtracks, So I
For
didn't
sure.
really have any interest because my parents weren't really music people. They still aren't. So I didn't absorb any from them or any relatives, and I'm an only child, so I didn't get it from any brothers or sisters. So I don't remember where the hell I heard that, but as soon as I did, I was hooked like immediately. So and then shortly after that, you start discovering Metallica and Guns N' Roses, and this is all back in the late 80s, early 90s. So was kind of the heyday of all that stuff.
Okay. Did you watch maybe the video on MTV and that got you into it as well? Was that maybe?
Nah,
Okay.
I wasn't big on TV really.
Okay.
Still am not big on TV, but so yeah. And then I at some point decided I'd try my hand at guitar, but my parents weren't very like supportive of that for whatever reason. So I just got some really crappy, I think it was a Harmony guitar. I don't know. I bought it at Sears.
Okay.
And they wouldn't buy me an amp, so I just had to play it through our stereo, like hooked into the microphone, like plug in.
Yeah.
It was terrible. But in any case, I kind of like formed like a little band, and maybe maybe like 7th grade, and we played like the talent show, because we didn't know what else to do.
Yeah.
I have no recollection of what it was that we played or if it was any good. It probably wasn't. And we tried to get like a friend of ours to sing, and he hid behind like the little stairwell at the that goes up to the stage in the gym, when we did it, and because he just couldn't, he had stage fright, so he couldn't do it, so he just hid behind the stairwell, and so it was pretty interesting. But I mean, the kids liked it, but we were the only like band there, so that was kind of my first. I stuck my toe into it, and then my drummer that I had just kind of, he moved to another state, so that kind of fell apart. And then I got a lot more interested in like girls and cars and drinking and dropping acid and shit like that, and then and then I graduated high school, went to college at U of A, did nothing but party. Knew that at some point I was like, this isn't working. So I joined the Marine Corps, went there. I was in the Marine Corps for 4 years, get out. And then I kind of picked up the music bug in college. And that's when I met Brandon and Eric and then eventually you and Robert and everybody else. And interestingly, the thing that drew me to music, so I bought a guitar and stuff, and we were just kind of jamming in my house. And I just started singing because I just, I've got kind of a deep voice, and everybody always told me that I should be in radio or something. So I was like, I'll try this singing thing. So I was brand new at it when I met you guys, but I'm kind of an adrenaline junkie, especially when I was younger. So that's initially what kind of drew me to music, because I thought it would be a huge rush to get up on stage in front of a bunch of people. And I was right. So, and then, when we started playing and stuff, I loved, and I still do, loved the writing process of new songs. I love that, because when something starts to come together, man, you get the chills, and you kind of, there's really not a whole lot of experiences that are equivalent to that, like creating a new thing like that with a group. And it's just awesome. And I loved it,
Same
so, and I was privileged through, and then, so this is back in like what, 2004? Was it something like that? Like 04, right?
I think so, yeah, because I just got my house. I just got my drum set, which I think I got in 2004. So yeah, about that time. Yeah.
So yeah, so back then, I've lost my train of thought. I don't know why that. Oh, so so that started, with Ethos and stuff, and then I ended up playing music for like 17 years.
Yeah.
After that, there was a couple year hiatus there after Ethos broke up, but that was due to life circumstances. So it turned out to be something that I really enjoyed a lot. So yeah, I don't know, it was kind of a roundabout way.
Yeah, well, I know you listen to it as well, but with Brandon, we talked about that the whole thing with you breaking your arm was kind of a blessing for you getting into music to begin with doing the band thing, because you couldn't do what you were doing before with
Well, no, so yeah, I listened to Brandon's and Eric's, and I will admit I have a terrible memory for certain things, but certain things I'll remember. But I didn't break my wrist until we'd already been jamming for a while. And and then it was when I broke my wrist that we decided we had to find a bass player, because I couldn't play bass anymore. Right. Yeah. So that's when we started looking for Robert. So, or found you knew him. I don't remember how he came around.
I think it was Eric, maybe. I don't remember. No, I don't remember it, because it wasn't through me. I think it was either Brandon or Eric that found him on Craigslist and then brought him by. And then we clicked because we had the Rush connection thing. So
yeah. I don't know. Yeah. So I mean, as far as the timeline goes, I guess it's not that important. But the broken wrist thing, that's what prompted us to find a bass player in the first place. Because I first started out playing bass because we just needed somebody to do that.
Yeah.
So I didn't particularly want to play bass. But we had you, we had Eric, and we had Brandon, and no bass player. So I was like, well, I'll try this, because I'd already been playing guitar for a couple years. And I figured it'd be just an easier version of that. And I was right. So, it wasn't a hard thing to pick up, but yeah, you shatter your wrist on a dirt bike, and there goes the bass playing for a little while. So
for sure. And do you I know we did a lot of songs, wrote a lot of songs together. Did you have a favorite of singing or even playing bass on of ours?
Uh, well, I didn't play a lot of bass for
Mhm.
Ethos. I probably only, I'm gonna say I played bass for like 3 to 6 months before I broke my wrist, and then we went and found somebody to do it. Right.
Because I
Um,
think we had what Soma, Battlecry, and Plastic Bass, I think were the three you played bass on. So
yeah, I don't remember, but of all the songs that we played back in the day,
Mhm.
I always loved doing Plastic Face. That
Okay.
song was awesome,
Yeah,
right? That
yeah,
and Hey You,
for sure.
and Hey, because I was a huge Pink Floyd fan. So I mean,
Mhm.
back to getting into music, I guess I'm going to
Yeah,
bring you all over the place because
you're
that's how my
fine.
brain works.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I got into Motley Crue and the Metallica and Guns N' Roses, and then and then this is the early '90s, so that's when the big explosion of all like Korn and Slipknot and all that, and I just love that stuff. And my friend group and everything that I was in at the time was all into that, and it was just it was awesome. And then one of my buddies back, when I was in high school, Eric, he was really into like Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin and Skinner and stuff like that, and then as soon as I started listening to Pink Floyd, I was like, what is this? This stuff is awesome.
Yeah.
So I got really into Pink Floyd. And I think that was one of the things that was kind of common between you and me and everybody else in the band, too. I know you and Robert had that Rush connection, but I think we all had like that Pink Floyd connection,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Sure.
So I've always had a penchant for Pink Floyd and like that kind of psychedelic sort of rock, uh, genre, I guess.
Mhm.
Like I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so I think the reason I liked doing Hey You so much as a band is because it got everybody's attention at the shows.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we continued to play that cover as Corium, which is probably the longest lasting band that I was in. And it did the same damn thing, man, for years. We rode that wave for like 10, 12 years.
Yeah.
Because as soon as the bar could be quiet and everybody could be paying attention to something else or whatever, but as soon as they hear that first few,
Mhm.
measures of Hey You, everybody's ears perk up, and they're like, oh shit, what are they going to do with this?
For sure. Yeah.
How bad are they going to screw this one up? But they loved it, which I totally get, because you got to be careful when you start, trying to play songs like that.
For sure. Yeah. And that's the one I really wish we had gotten in the studio and recorded too, because I love that the version we did of it where we just kind of built it up, got real heavy at the end and all that. Yeah,
Well,
that was a
did
lot
you
of fun.
get those recordings that I sent
I
you? Get a
did.
chance to listen to them yet?
I did. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, they're really good. The quality is definitely a lot better than what we did. I'm just more of like, it's hard for me sometimes to listen to something that I was a part of at one point because it's like, oh man, I wish I could have put my stamp on this. But they were really cool. I really dug them. Different takes, of course, which is cool too. But yeah, I mean, I'm all for any of that, for sure. So I did enjoy it.
Cool. Yeah, I just thought I'd heard you with Brandon and Eric,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
lamenting the fact that we didn't get a better recording than that, but we
for
did.
sure.
It was just with Corium,
Exactly.
which
Yeah.
in hindsight, after hearing those other two, you
Mhm.
probably could have been a part of, but we didn't know
Yeah.
that. So,
Yeah. Well,
um,
we can go over that. That was one, and you heard me with Brandon. I should have talked to you guys. I was fed information from a certain someone, and him and I were doing a lot more stuff in between when we were getting together, and he was just feeding me bullshit. So, because he was
yeah,
saying, "Oh, I was talking to BJ and Brandon, and they're just not happy with you and Eric right now, and shit like that." So, yeah,
yeah, I heard that, and
yeah,
when I heard that on the one with Eric,
uh-huh.
Eric's interview, I was
Yeah,
like, wow, that makes a little bit more sense. I mean, I don't, just like Brandon said, I don't hang on to grudges, man. It's been, what has it been, 15, 16 years, something like that.
yeah, something like that.
Um, that'd be a long time to hold on to a grudge, you know. Um, but I don't hold on to grudges, period. If you just come back around and said, hey, this is what happened, I
Yeah.
think we reached out to you, right, when we lost our drummer in Corium to see if you were interested, didn't we? I think Brandon did.
I
I could have
think
sworn
so.
there was some point.
Yeah, and I think I'd moved to California at that point.
Mm,
I think is what had happened. What had been like 2010, 2011 ish?
Yeah, somewhere around there,
Yeah.
because our drummer in Corium decided to move to Oregon, and
Okay.
yeah, is what
I
it is.
in late or mid to late 2010, my grandma wanted me to go stay out with her and take care of her, and then I stayed there for about 3 more years. So I think that's when either Eric or Brandon reached out to me and asked. I'm like, shit, man, I would do it if I wasn't here. So
Yeah. So
yeah,
in any case,
Yeah.
there's no grudges there, but it does make a lot more sense because at the time, in the vague memory of that, because I don't hang on to that kind of stuff, I was surprised and disappointed that you wouldn't come in and at least confront us, because that's what I thought it was. You're just being a wuss, and you didn't want to
Nope.
actually look us in the eye and say you quit.
Nope.
So, because I figured that's the least you could do. If
Yeah,
you're going to
and
quit on us,
I
at least come in.
yeah, and that's what I said to him. I was like, hey man, I'm gonna load these up. And I think we talked about that with Brandon. I was like, hey, I'm gonna load up my drums. I'm gonna go in there and tell him what's going on. And he's like, no, dude, I'll get it. Don't worry. Then when he came back out, he's like, they're fucking pissed. It's a good thing you didn't go in there. So, and that was that. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we weren't. There was none of that. There was nothing like that going on. If anything, we were thinking about trying to jettison Eric, just because he was getting to be a handful. Like Brandon said, and even Eric had admitted with his drinking and stuff, it was just getting to be a little much.
Sure.
But I mean, in hindsight, I probably would have hung it up around that time, anyways, because it was, I was in college at the time getting my engineering degree, which is a difficult one to get, and my junior year is coming up, and it was really hard. That was the hardest year, and then I met my wife, and so there would have been a couple of years sort of hiatus, or it would have been very difficult to fit that into my music, into my life at that just about that point in time. So it probably would have come to some inglorious end anyways as a result.
Yeah.
Are you still playing in a band or anything right now?
No, not right now, for multiple reasons, but and honestly, I'm not sure I will again, but you never know. I would hold the option open. So it's not like I hate it or anything. It's just, we can get into that later, I suppose, if we want to keep going down a timeline.
Sure. Do you still play at all? Do you still pick up the instrument and play, jam a little bit in the band?
I haven't played an instrument since, I'm trying to remember. I may have picked up a bass to sell it, make sure it was playing right, but as we can get into a little bit later, my life has been completely turned upside down the last year. So there's been no space in my life to touch an instrument in the last, just about a year exactly. It's been since what's the date today? The 4th. Yeah. So the last show I played, which would have been really the last time I played an instrument, was the 5th of February last year.
Oh wow! Almost
with Until the Sun, because they needed somebody to fill in their bass player, and something happened to him. He had a psychotic break or something and just disappeared on him, and they were all set up to do the live shoot and recording and everything at the Rhythm Room, and they needed somebody to pop in there, so I did, as a favor. But I didn't do any singing at that particular show, I don't think. So
yeah. We can get into that now if you're okay with it, about Jameson. We follow you on Facebook and stuff. We know what you've been going through, and first of all, I want to send out our thoughts and prayers and everything else. What exactly did he go through, or is he going through?
Yeah, so just about this time last year, he had developed something called facial palsy.
Okay.
Right. Bell's palsy, which is basically the facial muscles go like paralyzed. Right. And typically, which is, really bothered him, because he couldn't speak correctly. Right. Because you can't do a P, a P, or a M without lips that work. So when your face goes numb, you talk like an idiot, and you look funny because your face is all droopy. So I took him to the hospital, got an MRI. They couldn't figure out anything going wrong. Most of the literature says that facial palsy is just caused by some inflammation of the cranial nerves based from a virus or some sort of an infection. So we just kind of assumed It was, you know, a COVID byproduct, which there's some literature to back that up, but they couldn't find any cause for it. So we were like, okay, you know, I guess we'll just wait for this to go away because that's usually just all you can do. And then he started feeling sick to his stomach and really lethargic, and that went on for a couple weeks. Right, we just kind of let it go because just figured he had a bug or something, and maybe it was related to that palsy. And so eventually, when it didn't go away, took him in to get to PCH, to Phoenix Children's Hospital, to the ED, do a full workup, figure out what's going on, because clearly there was something going on. And then it turns out he was diagnosed with cancer. So he had a 13 centimeter tumor right in the center of his chest, that had grown into his kidneys, which was causing renal failure, which was causing, you know, his not feeling well.
Yeah.
It took a few days for them to diagnose it because it was not the way that his particular type of cancer presents often, if ever. And it's pretty rare it presents in any particular way anyways. But in any case, he was diagnosed with lymphoma, which is a blood cancer, similar to leukemia. And that tumor was growing out of his thymus, which is a gland that you have in the center of your chest that produces T cells, which are your immune system cells. So he's got what they call T lymphoblastic lymphoma, which is a cancer of the T cells. And there is T lymphoblastic leukemia too, which is essentially the same thing. It just gets classified leukemia if it's in your bone marrow, right? For lack of better terms. Okay. For him, it wasn't. They're very similar diseases. But, we started treatment right away. Luckily, I guess if you can call it that, we were informed once he was finally diagnosed. And that was probably the most gut-wrenching, terrible, probably 4 days of mine and my wife's entire life, was that 4 days trying to figure out what cancer he had. Mm-hmm. And what that meant, right? To know whether your kid's going to live or die.
Yeah. And when was this? About what?
How old was he?
Yeah.
He was 8.
Wow.
8, okay.
Yeah. So, and this kid and his sister, so I have 2 kids, him and his little sister. His little sister's name's Ellie, and she's about a year younger than he is. The healthiest kids I've known. They had never been to the doctor for anything their entire lives because they were so healthy and they don't ever get sick. All the other kids get sick. They don't get sick. So it was a complete, side swipe. We never would have guessed that was going on. There's no known cause of lymphoma, especially in children. So luckily, it's very treatable. It's curable in, 80 to 90% of cases, which is good, obviously.
That's a really high number, so that's good. Yeah.
It is, yes. So we were pretty relieved to find out that it was something that is treatable and highly curable, obviously. And we started treatment right away. Primary treatment typically lasts about a year, which is really hardcore chemo.
Yeah.
His body did not handle it well at the beginning. The first couple months, it ended up resulting with him, coding out on us at the hospital, which means, full team response, throw him in the ICU, basically almost died on us.
Right.
A couple days later, he had a full seizure and had some significant brain damage and a bleed in his brain. And then he was intubated, which means he get a breathing tube and sedated for 2 weeks to try to get his brain some rest and under control. We had no idea what it was going to be like when he woke up, whether he'd know who he was or we were, if he could speak or if he could walk or if he could function at all. But luckily, he woke up and he was him, kind of. He was like this weird, evil version of him, which didn't make any sense, but it seemed to he got this thing called PRES, which is posterior reversible encephalopathy syndrome. It's basically an inflammation damage to the brain. The folks at the hospital had seen this before for various reasons, and it does cause significant behavioral abnormalities. So he was like a weird, combination of a movie depiction of a exorcism added to like a movie depiction of somebody, withdrawing off of heroin. It was the weirdest thing and very difficult to deal with.
Yeah.
You see your sweet, nice little boy swearing and throwing middle fingers and throwing shit and scratching people, and it was pretty bad, and since he was go ahead.
Outside of the hospital, when you and your wife had private time, how did you deal with that?
There was no private time. So because of the COVID restrictions in place at the hospital, only one of the two of us could be at the hospital at any time. So anytime she was there, I wasn't there. And whenever I was there, she wasn't there. So we just kind of swapped. And for whatever reason, for the vast majority of the time at the hospital, of which in the last year we spent about 185 days actually living at PCH, he just wanted me there. I guess I was just his rock, My wife's an RN too, so she knows this stuff and would have preferred to be there most of the time, but he just wasn't having it. He wanted me there. So me and him lived there for the better part of the last year. Going through all this. And when he was intubated and sedated for his brain injury and all that, he lost so much weight. It was nothing but skin and bones by the time he woke up. And so he had to do a full rehab cycle to relearn how to walk and do everything. Eventually he came out of his sort of psychoses and was himself all of a sudden. It was pretty crazy. Just one day he just wakes up out of, that weird behavioral thing and was himself. Wow. And he's been himself ever since.
Yeah, that had to been such a relief though to have him back to how he was. So
and interesting, he doesn't remember anything from the time when he wasn't that thing.
Wow.
Nothing. He has no memory, which in my opinion is good. He doesn't need to remember any of that.
Yeah, for sure.
But in any case, we were in and out of the hospital. We were at the hospital for 47 days for that one. That was the hardest one. And we got out back in late April of last year. And then it's been in and out of the hospital ever since for various reasons, a lot of which was predictable just based on his treatment. And it's just been slow, but sure, improvement ever since.
Yeah.
And his cancer was in remission back in April of last year. So they kicked its ass, it completely undetectable, and he had it pretty bad. They don't do staging with lymphoma and leukemia, like stage 1 through 4 or whatever. Because stage 4 basically it just means it's moved throughout the rest of your body. Where stage 1 it means it's localized. Well, when it's a blood cancer, it's already all through your whole body, right when it starts. So the staging doesn't really work, but it was pretty advanced. But the chemo did absolutely decimate it. Which is good, so he's been in, clinical remission from his cancer for, close to a year. It knocked it out real fast, but they do a lot of additional treatment to try to prevent relapse.
Yeah.
So, we were in and out of the hospital. Unfortunately, we were in the hospital for Christmas and New Year's this year, or last year, however you want to look at it. That really was not fun. We were there for 4th of July. We were there for his birthday. We were there for almost everything this last year. But we got out, January 7th, and that should be his last admission because he finished his sort of intense phase of chemo, and there should be no reason for us to have to go back again for any long stays.
Yeah.
So, and now he's off to maintenance, which is another phase of the chemo. It's a lot lighter, more benign. And that goes on for another year and a half. So this thing ain't over yet.
Is he able to go to school, or do you have to homeschool him?
Well, he's been getting kind of homeschooled. Yeah, he was not able to go back to school at all. He hasn't been in school for a year. But we've hired like a teacher to come and teach him at home just to keep him up to speed. And then the school that he goes to, kind of provided a teacher that'll come. So so he gets that, and he technically could go back to school now. But he's got some radiation treatments coming up and stuff that's just going to take up a lot of time. So we'll wait until that's over with, and then he can go back to school.
What about your daughter? How does she handle it all?
she's handled it, okay, I guess. She was 7 years old when this got diagnosed, so it's not an easy thing for a kid like that to really understand. She just didn't like the fact that her brother and her dad were gone most of the year, and she worries about him. He didn't miss her at all because, that's the way siblings are, I guess. he hates her and she loves him. So, it's that kind of dynamic, but she's been doing all right.
And I have a younger sister about the same difference. So I kind of understand that mentality too. So, but hey, we really thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
So I mean that I know that
Oh, yeah.
that would be easy, and some people wouldn't have. So we really appreciate it. We have some upcoming episodes dealing with mental health because it's something I struggle with, and I know how hard it is to talk about some things sometimes. So we really appreciate you talking about that. So
Yeah, no problem, man. I mean, during this whole thing, I have to keep a lot of people informed, because a lot of people were following this whole progression, family and friends and people we never even knew. A lot of people, you really see people's true colors when they come out the woodwork in a good way in a situation like this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I understand that for sure. Is there anything else about that you'd like to go over, or are you pretty good with it now? Is there?
Yeah, man. All I would say is that anybody listening to this, we would appreciate the thoughts and prayers because some of the things that have transpired during this seem pretty miraculous. He should not have come out of this as good as he did. Maybe there's something to it.
For sure. Yeah. And I mean, and it's one of those too, like if there's anything that just doesn't seem right, just take him in, like,
for sure.
Don't just think it's and I mean, it sucks too when people are telling you that nothing's wrong and something is, and it is, and all that too. And, so definitely encourage people to just don't always listen to what people are telling you. If you think something's wrong, just keep pushing to find out what it is.
Yeah.
Because some people just hear that something's not or nothing's wrong and they just put it off until it's too late. So.
Yeah, man. So yeah, it's been a pretty rough year. So, all of that is to basically say that even if I had not left the band prior, then that would have been it anyways.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. So something that you got me into when we were in the band and stuff together was MMA. Do you still follow that?
Not much. I mean, the extent that I follow it at this point, I'm interesting. One of the reasons I was willing to come on the podcast because I'm a huge podcast listener, So I guess, I just say that to say that I listen to Joe Rogan with some regularity. So that's pretty much the only fill-in I get for what's going on in MMA. I used to be really into it, and I kept having parties and stuff, at my house like I used to back when we lived in Tempe. But it just kind of stopped doing that. I don't remember. Maybe like it's probably when we had kids. Honestly, that kind of stuff comes to a screeching halt when you got two little munchkins running around the house.
For sure.
So, and we just never got back to it. Though I still like it. I got my kids, both of them, into jujitsu when they were pretty young, and had kept them in there. Obviously, we haven't done that for the last year, but I intend on getting them back into it.
Nice.
So that's probably the only real connection to that we have anymore. But I want to start doing it too.
Yeah. Gracie school just opened right around the corner from us, so we're kind of looking into maybe getting into it. So that'd be fun, especially having that name. So
yeah, and I think it's great for kids, man. So for self-defense and just general health and
discipline,
well-being. Yeah, and it's something that if they can absorb it while they're young, it'll serve them for life.
Exactly.
It just will, especially jiu-jitsu, because you don't need to be a big man to protect yourself.
No,
if
not
you're
at
good
all.
at that.
Not at all. Yeah.
Now, going forward, are you worried about putting your son into anything like that?
Oh no.
No.
My wife is.
Yeah.
She's more protective than I am, when it comes to that. But I want him to get back into doing everything he did before as soon as we possibly can. I want him to feel normal again.
Right.
And get healthy and get strong. He hasn't grown a millimeter in the last year, so the whole chemo thing kind of stunted that. So we need to do what we can to get him healthy. And the best thing for that is for him to do stuff.
Yeah. Will that
know?
balance out eventually?
I don't know. If it doesn't, then we're going to get him on some human growth hormone, because I'm
Yeah.
not going to let him lose a couple inches of
Right.
height because of this,
Right.
Yeah.
because that's for life, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And
Wow.
I think Brandon said you guys went out a few weeks ago and went shooting all together
It was just last weekend, man.
last weekend.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, yeah. And
God, it was
Brandon
last
and his
weekend.
family.
Jeez.
Yeah, Brandon and his family, his whole family, but especially him and Corey and his kids and stuff, are essentially family members to us, and they always have been. So their kids know my kids, and you know, we do stuff with fair regularity still, even though without the music connection, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, through all the bands that I've never been in a band without Brandon.
Mhm.
So you know, so we're connected in that way. But yeah, we were out shooting last weekend, and I bought my son so when he was going through this, he was not, so I got him into riding dirt bikes about a year and a half ago, and he
Okay.
just loved it, just like I do, because I got back into riding dirt bikes a few years ago myself, and racing them and stuff like that. And I got him into it, and he just absolutely loved it. And then once he was starting to feel a little bit better back in like the fall, he wanted to ride his dirt bike, but he just couldn't because of he has a medical device installed into him called a port. And just having that kind of prevented him from doing that. So I bought him a little kid's razor, you know, a little side by side,
Okay.
a little Polaris Razor 170.
Nice.
So he loves, you know, ripping around the desert and that thing, and he loves shooting. My son is like a total gun nut. I got him shooting when he was like 4 or 5, because that's when I learned how to shoot. My dad taught me when I was real young, and I figured it'd be a good thing for him. So and he's just totally taken to it. He's got like 6 guns already. He just loves it. So yeah, we just all met up out there and shot some guns and drove around razors, and I brought my dirt bike, and you know, just a good day in the desert.
Nice. Very cool. That's awesome. And what are you doing now these days then?
Well, you know, I got my mechanical engineering degree when I was in, and I've been working for the most part for the last 15 years at Palo Verde. It's a nuclear power plant.
Yeah, I know where that is. Yeah.
West of the Phoenix area.
Yeah,
It's actually the biggest nuclear power plant in the country.
out in Tonopah, right?
Yep, and the biggest power producer in the country. So yeah, I've just been working out there ever since, and you know, it's great. It's great flexibility for life, and you know, I've been working from home for the last couple years, 3 years or whatnot, because of COVID. But I was doing that beforehand. We were kind of transitioning to that anyways.
Oh, cool.
So that's what I'm doing for work. My wife's an RN, so we opened up, and she's big into like aesthetics and stuff. So we opened a med spa for her in 2020, which turned out to be a scary situation, because we did the build out and everything, and about 3 days after we got the permit to open from the city, all the COVID lockdowns happened.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
So that was scary, but that's worked out pretty well. So she's doing that, and you know, besides that, man, honestly, it's just been, you know, I spent a lot of time making music during the last, you know, 17, 18 years, and recording. And other than that, I spent a ton of time with my kids, you know. So I love my kids, and I've spent an enormous amount of time with them, more than most other parents, I think. Because ever since they popped out, they're my favorite thing. So
yeah.
Where's your wife's med spa?
It's here in Verrado. So we're in a subdevelopment kind of northeast of Buckeye off I-10 called Verrado. And it's the only thing in this area that's like that. So yeah, it's just off of McDowell and Verrado Way off I-10 in the very western edge of the Phoenix area.
Okay. Yeah, because we would love to, you know, plug it. And
What's the spa called?
Her practice in there is called French Radiance Aesthetics.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, we'll put that on there.
My
Awesome.
wife's French, so that's the connection there. But yeah, besides that, man, I mean, you know, riding dirt bikes. I do a lot of mountain biking. I'm still an adrenaline junkie, so and now a health freak, you know. So
very cool.
So whatever gets me exercise and gets me outside, especially going fast, I love to do. And take my kids along with all that stuff as much as I can. So
Very cool. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy you're doing so well. That's really cool. So I love hearing that. And I've loved hearing that, Brandon and Eric are doing their own things and having fun what they're doing too. So it's good getting back talking to all you guys again now that I've found out the truth a few years ago and everything else. So yeah.
man, like I said, no hard feelings. So,
Yeah.
anytime you want to hang out or whatever, it'd be
Okay.
nice to, now that we're kind of done with this whole, we're not done, but this cancer thing is going to get more manageable. I'd
Mhm.
like to get out to a couple shows, and actually watch a show from the audience.
Yeah, we're gonna go to. I think he said he's doing a car show in Chandler in March that we're gonna go to. So
All right.
yeah,
Might have to come out for that.
yeah, because we're gonna go because it's at a antique store that we go to all the time. So like we know exactly where it is, and we're gonna go check that out. So we just gotta get the date on it, but I'm sure Brandon will let us know.
Yeah.
So is there anything else you wanted to go over?
Not too much, man. I mean, you want to talk about what happened to the other bands, or by the way, I don't know. I don't know if you saw my message or not. That club that you and Eric and Brandon were trying to remember the name, it was called the Sets. The one that had the 2 rooms, and there was the fight, and the fire department showed up and all that. It was right next to that LA Fitness on Mill and Southern. It was a big they had a huge pool room right on the other side. There was all those pool tables. And then they had that pretty damn good stage actually on the other side there. And I think that went out of business years ago. I don't know what it is now. Yeah, pretty much all the venues have gone under, which is really sad.
It is. Yeah. Not being able to book bands to play doesn't help for a couple of years either. So that's all you do.
Yeah, I mean that's part of it, but I think it was dying anyways. I mean, one of the reasons I got after Ethos, I kind of did other things for a little while, and then I got back into music, and me and Brandon and Eric hooked back up and started Corium, which was a sort of a continuation of what we were doing on Ethos, like a blues inspired hard rock type deal. And we did that for a long time, like 8 years. Played a lot of awesome shows, opened up for a lot of national acts. That was probably our best sort of time frame. I'd say like 2010 or 11 through like 2016 or something like that. And we played a lot of awesome gigs and had a lot of fun, and that band did great. But our bass player left, Eric left. He moved out to some other state. I think he went to Ohio or something, or back to Indiana. I forget what it was. So he left, Eric left, and then I picked up rhythm guitar because I always wanted it. I was kind of getting bored with it at the time. We'd been doing it for a long time. So I was like, well, this is a good, thing for me to keep going here. So I'll jump on guitar and focus on that. And, I really enjoyed doing that. But then our bass player left, moved to Prescott. So I dropped the rhythm guitar and picked up the bass. We tried some other vocalists. I think we ended Corium. That's right, when our drummer left, Mike. He moved to Oregon, and that's kind of when Corium disbanded. And then that's when we started looking into more of a blues type direction, which is what Brandon's doing now with Until the Sun. But we first started another band called 3220. Try to get another vocalist in other than myself, because we'd been doing it for so long, and I just I figured, if we have these great songs, I think, and they just never went anywhere. So it must be my fault, for vocals just not being what people were hoping for. So we started looking for other vocalists. And none of that really ever panned out. Tried a couple female vocalists where, I would do some of the songs and she would do some of the songs, because some of the songs just seemed better with a male vocal, but some of the stuff that Brandon had, we felt was just better with a female vocal. And I actually think that worked out really well, because I was playing bass and singing, and then we'd have another singer, singing with us. And I think that worked pretty well. We went through a couple different versions of that until, I don't remember why 3220 changed to Until the Sun, honestly. But it was essentially the same thing. We found our drummer, Chris, who's been with us, or I'd say us, but he's been with us ever since. It was that 2015 when Corium disbanded because we lost the drummer. And went in a decidedly more blues focused direction. And the reason for that is, you know, it seemed pretty obvious, and I think a lot of people might be in denial about this, but it really does seem like rock and roll has just kind of died. It just did. You know, you got your older generations, the boomers, and then Gen X, like myself, and maybe the first half of the millennials that still like rock and roll, but nobody else does. You know, and it's really sad to see. Yeah. But there's not a lot of new rock coming out, and it hasn't for a long time. Yeah. You know, I'm saying like 10 years now, a good decade. There's been really nothing great that's happened whatsoever with rock and roll at all.
Yeah. And some of it's, I think, just more hard rock than just the rock and roll part of it. And later on, I'll mention a couple bands to you I think you might dig also that are more in the hard rock genre that you might like that maybe you've not heard of.
But see, that's kind of the problem, right? I haven't heard of it. So, and I love that genre. And if I haven't heard about it, it's not getting out there. Yeah. And it's just a stone cold fact that the younger generations, so the second half of the millennials and then all the others coming up behind them, are only interested in hip hop and the various variants of that. Yeah. That's just how it is. And you can deny it all you want, but that's where we're at, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I get that aspect. I think the live stuff is still really big though. Like those rock and metal festivals are still doing really, really well.
Yeah. They are, but it's all the older bands.
Exactly. And all the older people.
That's right. So the crowd is getting older and older. There's no denying it. I mean, people will deny it. I get it, but it just died. And I'm not, you know, I have some theories. I'm not sure it just died on its own. I think it was killed. Right. Yes. You know, I go back to, what was it? The MTV Music Awards, or was it the Grammys? I don't remember what it was, but they first did, this is back in the 90s when they did the heavy metal category and they gave it to Jethro Tull. Yeah. Yeah. And that told me these motherfuckers don't know a goddamn thing about rock.
Well, a couple years ago, the Grammys gave Best Original Song to Tenacious D.
Which doing Tenacious D. They're great.
Yeah, doing a Dio song. When Dio died, they did that tribute thing, and they gave them gave them Best Original Song to Tenacious D for covering a Dio song. I'm like, you guys have no fucking clue. So yeah.
Well, I think the industry itself, when it had control of things, and sometimes I think they have even more control of things now.
Oh yeah.
You know, sure. They pushed rock and roll out.
Yeah, any commercial these days, we have to mute everything because in between shows we can't stand what we hear.
Yeah, it just makes our ears bleed. So
yeah. I mean, but I think it was a concerted effort to push it out.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, the powers that be, whoever they may be, wanted hip hop and pop to be the only things that people listen to. And, you know, I have multiple theories as to why that might be, and I won't get into those, but that seems pretty obvious. And unfortunately, well, I think one of the easiest things to say about it is that when you've got a pop, like a, I don't know, was it Taylor Swift? Let's say that one, or a hip hop artist. It's just one person.
Yeah.
Right.
Cheaper.
It's not only cheaper, it's easier to market. Yeah. And I think even more so, it's easier to control what they have to say.
Yeah.
Because you're only arguing with one person instead of a group. So yeah.
That's right. I think that's part of it, right? And the rock and roll sort of ethos is sort of anti everything, right? It's rebellious by nature, and hip hop isn't per se. It concentrates on a very narrow sort of slice of subject matter, which is all hedonistic, right? So
you don't want
self-serving, shit like that. You don't, well, you don't hear them railing against society or government or anything like that, like you would have from rock and roll bands, right? And if they start stepping out of line, it's a lot easier to make the one person go away.
Sure.
So, so in any case, it seems to me like they killed rock and roll. They did it on purpose, and it worked. Unfortunately, I kind of saw that coming, but I didn't think it was actually going to work.
Yeah.
Because I just thought that the sort of run of the mill cookie cutter hip hop and pop would just die on its own because of it's just stagnant. There's not much you can do with it.
Right.
Yeah. And
It's
what
it's so formulaic, and it's so
it's just linear. It's just one thing. There's nothing to it.
Electronic.
yeah, it's unidimensional. Now, I'm not, so I was a big fan of techno back in the day too, and I still do, like, no, I can't remember the names of any of them, but it started getting real big in the late 90s, like the EDM movement, right? So I've always liked that stuff, and I always wanted to incorporate it into my music, which I did in some of it, right? I just thought it was a good mix. My thought was that basically what would happen, and it did for a little while, is that rock and roll would just absorb the good parts of hip hop, and then hip hop would go away because rock and roll can do a lot more with it. So, you had your Linkin Parks and your Limp Bizkits and stuff like that kind of doing that, right? And they did a really good job with it. And I liked that stuff in the early 2000s. And I really thought that was going to be the death of hip hop because, we were just doing it better. But clearly that didn't happen, but I like the EDM stuff too. And the only reason I bring that up is in order to incorporate that into our music, I had to figure out how to make it. And it's not as easy as you'd think. Yeah, it's electronic, but it's not an easy thing to come up with something good.
Yeah.
It's not it's not a hand played instrument, but it's still an instrument of sorts, right? And there's a bunch of different ways you can make that type of music. And so it's not an easy thing to do. So I don't look down on electronic musicians at all. It's just a different way of making music, but it's just as valid as somebody playing a guitar or playing drums, in my opinion. So, I wouldn't want to go down that road with it. It's the same with the people that make the beats for hip hop and stuff like that. So I think there's just as much talent there. It's just a different type of talent, more of I'd say technical, but it's not going to be very good if it's just all technical, right? You still got to be creative.
Yeah. Yeah. And taking music out of schools too isn't going to help.
No.
So
no, it sure didn't, right? But
uh-oh. I think we lost him. Oh, no.
It's just, but my kids are constantly on YouTube. That's all they watch. The kids these days, don't watch television.
No, all
my
the
kids never.
All the young kids that I work with, that everything's TikTok this, TikTok that.
Well, I won't let my kids have TikTok, but they watch TikTok videos. They watch TikTok videos on YouTube.
Out there in life than just having your nose stuck in a phone.
Yeah.
Well, no, I understand that, but what I'm saying is they're constantly marketed to, in a way that they couldn't do before with TV. You know what I mean? And my son, I never let my kids play video games prior to my son getting cancer because I wanted them to do things in real life instead of actually play video games and, act like you're doing something in real life. It's a lot more fun to ride a real dirt bike than it is to play a video game of it.
Sure.
Right. So that was always my philosophy. But, when he had his brain damage and stuff, I figured it'd be a really good way to get his brain working again. And it worked. It was perfect. But now that he's done with all that, he's still playing the video games, which is fine. And I make him stop and go do real stuff. I think he can make that balance occur. But the reason I bring that up is kids play a lot of video games. They just do, which I get because I was a total video game nerd for a few years when I was younger too, when the first Nintendos came out and all that.
Yeah, for sure.
But all of the music in these video games is hip hop. All of it.
Yeah.
There's no deviation. And it's the same thing with all their videos that they watch. It's all hip hop all the time.
Yeah.
So that's all they ever hear. The only way my kids hear anything other than that is the music that I listen to. So it's just being stuffed down their faces constantly.
Yeah.
So, in any case, so that's, I kind of saw that writing on the wall, and that's why I was like, we just need to stop doing this because it's never going to go anywhere. I remember when we first started playing as Ethos, we played a couple shows and where there was like these older guys in their 40s,
Yeah.
like in a band playing, and they had all the like long 80s hair and shit,
Mhm.
you know, and they were playing like hair rock.
Yeah.
I mean, it was their own derivations of it. They weren't playing covers, but
Mhm.
they were playing that type of music. And I told myself back then, I was like, I'm never going to be that guy, because that dude is just, he's chasing a dream that's impossible to catch, because that's not a relevant type of music anymore. It just isn't. And I always told myself I wouldn't be that guy. And at some point I was like, I'm starting to be that guy. You know,
Yeah.
we're playing hard rock, like, you know, that was really popular from 2000 to like 2012, and it's not anymore,
Yeah.
you know, and there's no chance of making anything out of this.
Yeah.
So that's why we went. And Brandon's always been a blues player. That's always been his passion.
Mhm.
And I was like, you know what, let's just try being a blues band, because, you know, I see blues as one of those things like jazz or classical music,
Mhm.
where it's been around forever. It's probably gonna be around forever. It's one of those sort of integrated forever genres, and there will always be a group of people that really like that type of music, because there's nothing else like it, really.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe we, instead of shooting for what we thought was this big, you know, audience that we could just get a little piece of, maybe we shoot for a smaller audience and get a bigger piece of that, because there's
Yeah.
not a whole lot of competition there, right? I mean, there just doesn't seem to be.
Yeah.
So we tried that, and that's what we did with Until the Sun.
Okay.
And we kind of kept it a little bit more rocking than just straight blues, you know?
Yeah, because that's what we heard when we listened to it, the couple albums. I'm like, this isn't too far off of what we were doing in Ethos. It's just not as focused on more of the like the hard rock metal side of it. It's more of a blues rock kind of feel for it.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I figured if we played good blues rock, then we could fit in with the blues crowd, and we could
Mhm.
also play rock shows.
Yeah.
So that really keeps your options pretty well open, right?
Yeah.
But in hindsight, it just, you know, it's just not going anywhere. I wish it were, you know, but yeah. And the reason I got out of it, so I quit the band, and I told Brandon, was it the summer of 2020, 2021, when we were in California, we were playing a couple of gigs in California that summer. Because I'd been thinking, I'm like, you know, even if we get what we all seem to want, which is like, say, for lack of better terms, a record deal. I wouldn't really want a record deal. I'd rather just blow up on our own, you know.
Yeah.
But in any case, let's say you got big, right? You did the thing that you always wanted to do as a musician. Would I really want to like leave my kids, my wife, in my house for weeks at a time to go around and play fucking shitty bars as some opener for some blues band or whatever it might be, or even if it's a big thing, right? Getting paid, you know, if you all added up like 60 grand a year, would I be willing to leave my wife and kids for weeks at a time to do that? And I was like, no, I don't think I would. And I would feel completely guilty if I was their front man and we got an opportunity like that, and I was like, no, I'm not going to go, because I don't want to leave my wife and kid. It's completely unfair to them if they're willing to do that, right?
Yeah.
So ultimately, that's the reason I stopped music. I was like, because what success looks like wasn't something that I wanted anymore.
Okay. Yeah,
You
and
know
I
what I
get
mean?
that. Yeah, I get that, because I mean, like now that I don't know if we talked about it on air or off air with Brandon, but as I just mentioned that I just do it now because I love doing it. And if I got a record deal, I would turn it down for those reasons. Like, I don't want to go on the road. That's a 20-year-old thing. I'm twice that now. I don't need to hit the road and be gone for 6 months out of the year and stuff. It's just not worth it to me.
Yeah, I would have loved that shit when I was in my 20s.
For sure.
You
Same
know?
here. I mean, all of us.
Or hell,
yeah.
even in my 30s, man, I would have been all over that. And
Yeah.
and it doesn't so much have to do with my age, because honestly, I don't feel physically any different than I did when I was 20 something.
Sure.
Because I stay in good shape. I always have, and I
Mhm.
exercise and eat well and all that, so that helps. It's just I've got kids, man, and I love them a lot more than I love music. And you know, I'm not willing to do it.
Yeah. No,
Just
I get
not.
that. Yeah. That's the same thing with me. I mean, I just wouldn't want to give up what I have right now. I still love doing it. If I could play a gig here and there every month or two, I'm cool with that as well. or putting an album out or something like that. It's always fun. The writing, I love the writing process, like we talked about earlier, but I don't want it to be a career anymore. So it's just not worth it. So
Yeah, and I mean, I would be okay making a career out of it. Like, so I think we were texting back and forth on Messenger when you first were talking about this podcast here, talking about recording, which I got really into for a number of years there.
yeah,
And, when I left the band, I thought for a little bit, like, because I think I'd gotten good enough. Well, I know I'd gotten good enough at it that I was better than pretty much everybody in town. Right. Because we've used everybody in town, and paid a lot of money for it. And, we have some good audio engineers and, mixers and stuff in town. We do, Larry over at Mind's Eye is probably one of the best ones. You got some good folks over at Salt Mine. That's about it. And, the quality of the recordings that I was putting out were at least on par with them. So I knew I could, do that. But I'm working out the numbers, and I'm like, in order to meet the same type of, money that I'm making as an engineer, which I've been doing for 15 years now, that's just not, it's not going to happen. I'd have to do a lot of recording, or I'd have to charge a lot of money. And, I think since rock and roll has basically been killed, your customer base is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
Because you really don't need a big recording studio to manage hip hop. I didn't need a big recording studio to record what we were doing at all.
Yeah.
I mean, by the time I was done recording, I had literally, like, I have a shed that I built in my backyard, right, that I wanted to use for recording. And that honestly is all I needed.
Yeah.
You have all you need is a great vocal mic, which costs a lot of money. You need a couple really good preamps, and a few other good mics, and a decent, interface. And that's pretty much all you need. A decent set of monitors for mixing, and you're done. You don't need a giant studio for all that. Now, granted, there's a lot to be said about the room, right? Salt Mine has the best room in town. I don't know if you've ever been there. But I would definitely recommend, if you're going to be doing any albums, instead of trying to record drums on your own, which is the hardest thing to get right. What we did for our last album is just, we recorded everything else, including a scratch drum track. And then we went to Salt Mine to do the drums there.
Okay.
Because their room sounds so freaking good. And they have an old vintage Neve board with awesome preamps, and it was just, that was the way to do it, hands down. And it didn't cost us that much money to get those raw tracks, and then I just mixed all of it.
Yeah, because we recorded my album that we just came out with 2 years ago. We just recorded it here because I have a almost like a church-like living room where it has a vaulted ceiling and all that.
Vaulted ceiling.
Just the drums sound so good in it, and we just did it here, and it sounds great.
No, you're lucky, man. You're lucky, because I tried recording drums in a lot of different places, and usually I don't want that room noise. I don't want that room noise on anything, because then I get to control the reverb. I don't like that to be part of the original track, personally.
Yeah.
But I mean, Salt Mine has a great room. It's just the way it's shaped, and the sound deadening's in exactly the right spots, and it's got all the wood floors, and it's just perfect. And they got fantastic gear, like shit you could never afford.
Yeah.
I mean, what's a Neve board cost nowadays? $1 million on like literally.
Yeah.
So
we were really happy with how it came out, honestly, because I mean, it took me probably a year just to get my drums where I wanted them.
Right.
And then now they just don't move because all the mics are set up where they are, the mixing board, everything's just set where it is. But came out really good, and I can sit down at any time and just lay stuff down. Yeah. So. But.
Yeah, that's pretty. I mean, if you listen to our most recent album that we put out, is Until with Until the Sun. We had 2 live songs on there, so we recorded those. What the hell is that place called? Premier Studios in Phoenix.
Okay.
Like kind of close to downtown Phoenix. And that was during the lockdowns, like early in the lockdowns, because we couldn't get any shows. So what we were doing is we were setting up. They have a like Premiere Studios is mostly like a practice place where people can go practice in the various rooms, you know.
Okay.
And then they have a recording studio, and then they have a full size venue room where it's like a full size stage, like say, you know, you'd know this, like Joe's Grotto was. It was about the size of Joe's Grotto's stage in their room, and they had lights and everything else, right? And you can just rent that room, and it's not very expensive. I don't remember what it was, maybe $100 an hour or something like that.
Okay.
And I just brought all my recording stuff, set it up, you know, and we recorded. And I figured out a way to get the mix through my computer into Reaper, which is what I used to mix with, get all the levels right, and then pump it out to Facebook Live, right? So I managed to get like a really good live mic setup with all the bells and whistles, the compression and all that shit, so that we could do Facebook Live like performances in this place, right? And while we're, you know, I hit record while we were there, so I had all these so that we could make, you know, use it on an album somewhere. So that's what we did that on 2 separate occasions during the lockdowns, and it was awesome. I mean, we had thousands of people on our Facebook Live watching it. We had a bigger audience doing that than we ever did in real life. You know,
people at that time period too, people probably just looking for that kind of stuff, which is great, great marketing to do. So it's a really good idea for sure. Yeah.
And it turned out, and I'm just saying, so if you want to check out, there's 2 songs on the most recent album from Until the Sun that I mixed, and that those were recorded there at Premiere, and they turned out freaking great, man. You know, so you know, you can do really well doing live recordings. I know Brandon was saying he really wants to do that. I hate bleed. He was saying he wants to do, you know, a full band recordings, and I always was like, no, because I hate bleed, because you can't edit, you know. And that's
true. Yeah.
Listening, like, so you sent me those Ethos remasters, and you know, I couldn't take them. But I'm a total perfectionist, especially when it comes to the recordings. I just couldn't. My vocals are terrible. But the biggest thing is the edit, on the timing, right? So I'll go through when I record a track, like say a drum track, I'll edit every single beat to put it on the freaking grid, every single one. And it takes hours. Yeah. But it's fucking worth it. You know, it makes all the difference in the world. And I can't do that if I've got a bunch of microphone bleed. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because
when we did ours, everyone would be there, they'd play, but we would mute theirs. They would only play through my headphones. I put my drums down, and then they would do theirs individually. So I prefer that too, just because, like you said, the editing in the long run, I could just focus on the drums or the guitar or the vocals or the this and that. So yeah, I get that. I've done both. I like them both, but I also haven't had to mix both of them too much. So
yeah, I mean, the mix is the hard part. I mean, you can make a pretty shitty recording sound pretty good if you know how to use all the tools, you know. Sure. And the mix, but see, I mean, that's why I got burnt out on it. I started recording in, like, it was in 2015 when we lost our drummer. That's when I was like, we got nothing else to do for now except for record, you know. So while we were looking for a drummer, I started recording. Like, how hard can this be, you know? And turns out it's pretty fucking hard to do it right.
Yeah, that's why we're like, they're in the studio right now, we should have the album in a couple months, and a year later they get it done. It's like, well, that's why it takes 6 months to record it, 6 months to mix it, master it. So yeah.
Well, I literally spent every single night, because I used to be a night owl, I'm not anymore, but every single night from like 9:30 when my wife and kids would go to bed till like 1 a.m. on weekdays and 4 a.m. on the weekends, every single night working on recording. Jeez. For 5 years, because I was completely obsessed with it. And I went through, you know, $200,000 worth of gear trying to find all the right stuff, you know, buying it, trying it, selling it, blah blah blah. And it was a total obsession, and which is fine, and I do that kind of thing. I obsess over stuff. And then right when I get really good at it, I'm done with it. Yeah. You know, because that's what I did. And it's just because I did too much for too long. I just totally burned. And, you know, and it became easy at the end once you actually know how to do it. You know,
Yeah.
it's actually not that hard. It just takes a long time to figure it out because it's not like it's in a book somewhere. So
yeah. No. What DAW did you like? Did you use those?
Reaper. Yep.
Reaper.
Reaper's
Okay.
it's free and it's fucking awesome.
Okay.
So don't spend money on DAWs, dude.
Okay.
If you're running Pro Tools and they make you do your, pay for an update every couple of years or whatever,
Okay.
don't do that shit.
Okay.
Just get Reaper and be done with it. It does every damn thing that Pro Tools does, and it's
Okay.
free.
Cool. Yeah, because my keyboardist brought in, he had Acid, which is through Sony, I think it was, or something like that.
Yeah.
I just use his, but it's free right now. But yeah, I'm looking for something else just to have for my own.
Yeah,
So-
dude.
Okay.
110% recommend Reaper.
Okay. Cool. I will.
It's
definitely
awesome.
look that up. Okay.
It does every damn thing Pro Tools does. It's just free. Well, you pay like $60 for a lifetime license if you're gonna.
Okay.
They just ask that you pay some money if you're gonna use it for recordings that you release and make money on.
Okay.
Right? I mean, they don't enforce it, but I figured it was,
Yeah.
the least I could do.
Yeah.
For
sure. Yeah, absolutely.
But it's great, man. Yeah, for sure. Use Reaper. Yep,
Okay.
hands down.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we're gonna let you go. It's getting a little late in the evening, and I know you got kids and everything to get back to. But we really want to thank you for doing this. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, man.
Talk about everything, and hopefully we can get together soon and do something for sure. So
Yeah, man. Yeah, for sure. Maybe we'll meet up at that show in Chandler.
okay, yeah.
I'll bring my kids out.
Cool. Yeah, it'd be great to meet them. So, and then obviously the wife will be with me. You can meet her face to face as well. So
Cool. I feel like I've met her before. Did I not?
no,
No, you guys didn't know each other when we were together. No.
I met her in California. So
All right. I know. I every girlfriend and wife I've had has all come from California too. So
yeah. Okay.
there you go.
Cool. Well, thank you for
And I
doing
drag them out here to the desert.
for sure. All right. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
All right, man.
All right.
All right.
Drumming
All right.
up
So I guess.
conversation.